put them in the chat box. Troy's going to keep monitoring those, and at the end we'll answer any questions that come up. Today we're going to look at Acumatica Construction Edition, and this is a little bit older slide, but we'll move through that. So, introduction to Acumatica. This product was actually designed for the cloud day one. So it isn't a legacy system that started on PCs. When they designed this and started the design, they made some bets, and they thought HTML5 and web services were going to be the industry standards. At the time, they were just a flavor that people were considering, and there were a bunch of them out there. The actual, by this time now, these are the standard tools that most people use for any new development application. So it was the right decision years and years ago. The company itself has its history back in ERP, financial systems. And the people that started the company, the managers, all have a mid-size, mid-market environment in their background. So this isn't designed for really large companies, and it's not designed for really small companies. It's designed to be a platform first, and it's designed to be a financial system second. And the thoughts here is we're seeing a real disruption in the industry around cloud, and you'll see more and more of it. Most of the big development projects are around cloud technology. It's allowing multiple cloud environments, connected clouds to talk to each other. The old legacy apps are going to get left in the dust, because as you move up to the cloud, the services that we provide make it easier for us to connect and manipulate data. That's what this tool will let us do. Acumatica focuses on development and support, and then the actual implementation and sales, report writing, all that happens from your local business partner. And that's what Troy's group will do in this world. The idea is access anywhere. So you have a phone, have a tablet, have a PC. All you need is access to the internet. You just log into the Acumatica site, and there's all your information customized to the way you want it. It's responsive programming, so if I log in with a certain size tablet, it'll orient all the information. As I get into a bigger area, you'll see I'll have a better representation of the data. They're also different, and they don't use seat-based licensing. Most older systems, you look at the number of people you want in the software, either concurrently or named, and that's how you pay for the software. Acumatica uses a licensing environment where we don't really care about the number of people that are in the system. We really look at processing, how much you're using the software. So as you get bigger, you can add people. We don't worry about that. As you get smaller, if you go up and down in cycles, we can do the same thing. We can move the software up or down based on how busy you are and how much you're using it. It eliminates that need of saying, hey, I got a new employee coming in and I better get them software and get them a license. We just don't think about it that way. We also use two models for deployment: public cloud or a SaaS-based environment where we host everything, our servers in our cloud, and all you're really doing is just using the software. So there's an annual contract for that, and that's typically where you'd see most SaaS systems. But we also offer a private cloud. The difference here is if we have clients who say they've already invested huge in the stack, they have their own cloud or they have their own servers in their office and they have their own way of exposing the software to the people remotely, we can go with a private cloud. It just moves the software to your servers and allows you to maintain the deployment model. That's a little unique. Most companies are one or the other. The product, the company itself, there's a global reach. The company has got multiple offices around the world. This slide's missing one office, which is in Mexico City. So we looked at headquarters is in Seattle. Development's done out of Moscow, Montreal, and Mexico City. Supports here in the U.S. or in Singapore. So it's very global. And because of that, you'll see the system offers some features that some people need if you're doing transactions across companies. So it's got multi-currency. It recognizes different languages. So there's a lot there if you need it. These are switches typically you turn on or off. So if you're just operating specifically in the US, we don't have to worry about multi-currency. But if you do decide to reach into some of our local countries, then we've got that there for you. over 3,000 customers in this company right now. The other thing that Acumatica has is there are some companies out there that have decided to move away from legacy applications and use Acumatica as their new state-of-the-art system. So if you were to look at MYOB in Australia, their new Advantage system, I believe the name is, and compare it to the Acumatica I'm going to show you, it's the same application. They use a concept called white labeling. So they take a copy of the code and they bring it in, localize it, and that's what becomes their software. So they don't go through the long, arduous process of development. They'll take an existing application, white label it. So even though we say we're well over 3,000 customers, when we start adding up these other companies and the number of people they have using it, it becomes a much larger number. Because we're cloud-based, we have an ISV. These are people that do development that are connecting to Acumatica. Because we're a platform, it makes it very easy for other systems to connect. So as we start looking through your needs, depending on what type of company you are and maybe some of the things you might want to connect to, these tools are already built, and then we've got an ability to use the same tool set to build new interfaces. So if you have a specific estimating system that you like and you want to interface it, it becomes very easy with this tool set. If you want to use DocuSign on your documents, or you want to use Adobe eSign, or you're really concerned about taxes, we have these interfaces to Avalara that are out there. So it's just there's 150 of these companies now that allow us to expand the capabilities and use Acumatica as the core that's out there. This is really almost 4,000 right now, and these are just some of the customers. You'll see that there is a strong following in manufacturing and distribution and retail e-commerce. We do have quite a few companies in the service world that use our project accounting. The solution I'm going to show you is the construction application, which is just an extension of their project accounting system. And we're seeing a very strong interest in a new web-based construction system. I think you'll see they've done a good job with that version 1. A bunch of awards, recognition. Because it's a technology company, you'll find that a lot of the companies, the magazines, the groups that review technologies use this system, use the technology as kind of award-winning and state-of-the-art. So what is this product? So I'm going to go back. So let's just look at Acumatica for construction. And from a platform perspective, there are a couple things that we want to look at, a couple things that I think are important. Some of these, again, we're multi-language. If you need that, you can localize an individual user. We have import and export capability throughout the software. We use a concept called segmented keys, where if you decide you have a certain way you want to number your vendors or number your customers, you can start to put segments and use auto numbering capabilities within the software. So we have a very consistent way that records are numbered. Security throughout the system. There's a full mobile application that comes with the software. So we can access dashboards and reports, and we can do time cards and expenses and approvals. And so you really can utilize a fair amount of the software in a mobile app that's optimized for a cell phone. And I can kind of walk you through what's out there as well. Full dashboarding capability. This comes with the software. We ship construction dashboards with it. There's also dashboards for different types of employees. Dashboards themselves are user defined. If you want to design your own, you want to modify ours, you can do that. You can drill down to transactions from the dashboard. So if we have a list of jobs and I want to drill down, if you see a hyperlink, it'll take me right down to the transaction. So it's very user-friendly, very unique in the industry to get you from a dashboard down to a transaction. Report writers. We've got our own report writer. Drill down to transactions, create forms if we want, move it right into Excel if we need. We've got analytical forms here too, so you can get to financial statements very quickly, drill down to transactions. Generic inquiries are like a spreadsheet. You build the queries to pull data out, and you kind of have a unique ability to actually take it into an internal pivot table. So if you pull a large block of data out and you want to start to map it back and forth, you can do that very quickly and easily right inside our query, which can also become a dashboard and drill down. Some things that we find people are really got a full approval system in the software. So if you want to have your accounts payable bills entered and then routed for approval, purchase orders, subcontracts, change orders, all of those are available to start the transaction and then utilize our approval maps to map them for to be routed through the organization. And once they've moved through the full approval process, they become active. We also assign, so if you have a requisition or receipts or employee expenses that are coming into the software, and if something hits the software that's new and we want to assign it to a group or an individual, we can do that as well. Any place we can enter data, we can import data. We call those import scenarios. And any data that you see in the software, if you want to bring it out in a very specific format, we call that an export scenario. So if you've got an estimating system that's unique and it pulls data, removes it to Excel, all we really need is a format of that spreadsheet. And then we can bring that data in using an import scenario. And you build those. It's not custom. It's not, there's programmers aren't involved. It's just a unique way to get data in and out of the software. We allow you to do workflow automation. So if you want to customize how certain screens work, we can do that. We have notification tools, processing tools. When we get to the general ledger, unlimited number of budgets, import them from Excel. Cash management, we can import bank transactions. So, typical format of transactions that are coming out, and we can bring those in. AP, invoice routing, construction orientation, joint checks, retainage, compliance capabilities built in here. We have point of sale. So if you have a shop or you have a back warehouse where you sell, we have capabilities to do that as well. Get over to AR, credit cards, schedule of value billing, time and material billing, quick billing, all that's available. Where we really differentiate ourselves in the project side of the house. So we've got subcontract control, we've got compliance, we've got change orders. Change orders can impact owner, budget, commitment, all on the same screen. Material management if you need it, requisitions, purchasing, warehousing, billing, pro formas. So it's a very sophisticated processing capability. And we have purchasing there as well. It can be driven right out of purchase orders. It works with our sales order system. So if you have warehouses or you're also a supplier, we can handle that. If you want to use inventory, multiple warehouses, kits, all types of things that you might need here. Acumatica has its own CRM system that works throughout the software. So you can have leads, and leads can become opportunities, and opportunities can become sales. We can work with the sales order system if you want to do it that way, but we'll keep track of all of those opportunities in a standard system, so I can now show the company what are we bidding on, who are we bidding to. And if you're a subcontractor, we can actually keep track of one opportunity and the multiple generals that you're bidding it against. Self-service portal tends to be around customers now, but they're working on vendors. So if you have customers, they want to see what's going on, we have an ability to show them what's happening. Full fixed asset system. Let me go back one. There's also an interface from Salesforce to the CRM system inside Acumatica. So if you've made a big investment in Salesforce, but you still want those opportunities to end up inside your ERP system, we can do that right through that interface. Fixed assets, time and expense tracking, time capture capabilities, entering expenses from your phone, approvals, routing, all that's available within the core solution. We also have integrations that are in process, Hyphen with their Supply Pro. So if you're a subcontractor or supplier that works in the residential, we have an ability to actually integrate Hyphen into our sales order system to move it through that into project accounting. We're finalizing the Procore interface. These are the objects we're working on. We expect to have this done in the next quarter. It's about halfway through, maybe a little bit more. We're using Procore's most advanced interface. It's their newest API. So as we're doing this, it's taking a little bit longer than if we were using their old API, but we wanted to have the connected cloud capability that really utilizes their current technology. And then we just have integrations. So Smartsheet.net is an integration that we helps with scheduling, Adobe Sign, eSign, We've got that. Avalara is there if you want. So let me kind of drop out of this now, and I'm going to jump into the software real quick. So this is the login screen. And so when I log in now, I'm just going to log in as admin, and I'm going to put in my password. I'm going to tell it which company I want to go in. So the unique thing here is we can have multiple companies, and those companies can have groups of entities within, and you can keep people in or out of different groupings. So if you look up in my upper corner, it shows that I've got 3 different companies. Inside each of these companies, I can have multiple entities, and those entities can handle consolidations. Depending on what we're doing, if we need to do multiple companies, intercompany accounting, I can do it within these. Because the companies are resident together, I can also get in and start consolidating across multiple entities that I've got across companies. So it's a really sophisticated tool that lets me move back and forth in the area. As we start looking at profiles just telling the software how I want things to happen, where my email account is, what I've got going on. So this is just a default dashboard. You see I've got a bunch of dashboards available. What I'm basically looking at is for my login, I have my workspace on the left. If I click on construction, it pulls in all of the activities that are associated with my workspace, transactions and setup and processes and forms. This is my quick menu. It's made up of these, which are tiles, and these are programs or reports. If I click this, it'll move all of this down so I get everything. So I may have many items that I have on my space, but I maybe don't need to see all of them. It's very simple for you to come out here and say, hey, I don't really want to see this one, but I take this one off and put that one on. And then what you end up with is a very compact screen associated with construction. Same idea as if I look at vendors. What do I typically do with vendors? I can tell the software now, if I want to make any of these my favorite, I just click over here. You'll see there's a star. If I make that a favorite, it'll show up on my screen here. So I do have a kind of a nice way of just identifying those things I do on and off, those things that I do all the time, putting them on menus that I want, hiding menus. So if you're not responsible for inventory, I can come up here and unpeg it. If I unpin it, it moves it off of the main screen and moves it back to this area where I have more items. So these are things that I don't do on a day-to-day basis. I still may want to see them, but I don't need to see them in this place. Very simple to get you a clean, concise menuing system that we've got out here. Go ahead back here to construction for a second.
Glenn, while you're pulling that up real quick, just a couple more people joined in since we started. Excuse me for the interruption. For those of you that joined a little late, we're just going to use if you have questions, go ahead and start entering them in the question portion or in the chat box. I'll be monitoring that, and we'll be answering all those questions at the end of the actual product demonstration. Sorry, Glenn, go ahead. Just wanted to get that out there so people could start typing the questions in.
Okay, so I'm on a dashboard. The way the dashboards work, these are icons or they're widgets, and the widgets can be queries, reports, or they can be just data that we're manipulating. When I hit the design button, this is now where I can come in and start to define what is included in the widget or what do I want on here as a widget. So I can throw charts and data tables. I can put Power BI information in here, scorecards or wiki pages. So if I want some descriptions, web pages, all those things are available within the design area of this. So this can be modified by individual if we want. If you see something that's pulls up like this, or it's got a link, if I drill down, it'll take me to the detail. So I found one of my projects and I want to jump down to the project. It opens my project screen. And the intent throughout the system is to try to limit the number of screens that an individual has to use to get to the data that they want. So as I sit on this project, there's information here on the screens, and there's also tabs that will pull me to more information. And I can quickly see that I've got a project. I can see who my customer is. If I want to drill down to the customer, I can just click on that link. If I want to look at templates, and you'll find a very consistent approach. So if I see a magnifying glass, it means I can jump down to more detail, or I can do a lookup on that screen. If I see a pen, it means I can go to the setup if I need to add one on the fly. So in this world, I'm going to look at the basic project. A couple of the highlights here. The revenue budget level really is a kind of a unique tool that lets me define how much detail is associated with my schedule of values. Do I want to include cost codes in my billing, or do I just want to schedule a value? Am I going to use change orders? Do I want to use the workflow for change orders, or do I just, is it a quick job? I really just want to go make changes. I want to change the budget. I want to go change certain things, and I don't care about where I started. I'm only worried about where I am. In that case, we uncheck the change workflow, and we don't worry about it. If I check the change workflow, I can start to use actions here where I can lock budgets or lock commitments. If I lock a budget, then any change to that budget has to come through a change order. If I lock a commitments, the commitments are all there, we're bought out. I'm going to have to go in now, and any changes have to come through a change order. So depending on security, we know what happens. Sometimes you lock, and then I need to go unlock. If you have the security here, I can come through and unlock that commitment. So I can go back in, modify the commitments, then go back and lock again if we need to do that. We can use this project. So if you have a project that you use over and over and you want to create a template, you can take a project that's out there, create the template, and then use that template when I start new projects. So we can really quickly deal with the setup in that environment. We can put dates in here. What type of billing do we use? So if you have different types of billing requirements for customers, this is where I can change my billing rules. This is user defined. So you can come in and say, hey, this is going to be a certain type of progress billing, or it's T&M, whatever you need to do there. You can also create pro forma billings or T&M billings. So a lot of flexibility on how we set this up. If I go to the next tab, it looks at tasks. Tasks kind of an interesting environment for us. It's an ability to define how I want my costing or billing structure to look. So we have a set of tasks. A task can be a sub job. So if I wanted to ledger my job out and say, hey, I've got a project, and then inside that project, which may be a home, I want to go ahead and set up a sub job, which is the pool, and a sub job, which is the stable. And so I can keep track of each of those. We can also make a task a schedule of values. So I can look and say, hey, this is my general conditions, and this is mobilization, this is concrete, whatever it is. Or if I really want to do a link, I can link my sub jobs right to my billing line items. So now I can get revenue associated with sub jobs if we want. A little bit unique in the industry. That's hard to do in most systems. When I jump over to the revenue side, I can see now that I've got my schedule of values that's broken down by my schedule and then my cost code. So I'm ledgering out my billing to a very detailed environment. If I want to use just a roll-up, then I can go just this way. Here's what my schedule of value is. Here's where my billings are. The beauty of this is once I'm in the grid, if I have this information in Excel and I want to import it, I can just come in here and it will let me import records, so my schedule of value or my revenue budget, right from an Excel spreadsheet. If you're not sure what the format of the sheet needs to be, you just export the Excel sheet, and then when you go to import it, we're looking for column headings. Once we use if we use the existing column headings, everything maps automatically, and we can bring that data in. We also have an ability to do filters. So if you said, I want to filter what goes on this grid and in a consistent way, I can just come into the software now and add a filter. I can save the filter and I can use that filter. Just getting through a large group of information and then saying, show me only labor, or show me only material, or only show me subcontracts, or only show me things that are unstarted. All of those are available within anytime you see that filter capability. If I go out to the cost budget, the same idea. I can import the cost budget. Cost budgets are broken down by subjob, cost code, account group, or category. And this is where I can come through now and start to put in an original budget, look at commitments, change orders. All that is driven within one area. If I want to take a look to see what's out on one of these line items, I just highlight the line item, and if I click View Commitment Details, software will drill me down now and show me for that line item on that budget every commitment that we've issued. And so as I look at this now, we can start to see that I've got some over here, and if I drill down now, I can see what was that. So I'm now going from a line item on a budget to a list of all the commitments for a certain line item, and then this is a subcontract I issued to Bowman Surveying. I can see that I've got some issues out here, maybe from a compliance basis. I can also see any of the other information that I might look for. attributes or compliance. All that's sitting right here. Go back out. If I want to see the transactions, so if we have multiple transactions associated with this line item, this is where we can start to say, hey, I want to see everything that's come in. So I can look at all the AP invoices, if there's AR billing, labor, anything we want to do, this will let me do a query right into that line item. If I go a little bit further, same thing here, filters. If I want to filter by labor on this budget, it's really easy to build that filter. The filters will then show up as a drop down as we go. We look at employees. This is where I can define employees that have access to the project. So if you want people to see the project, you want people to enter time on the project through our time and expense world, this is where I will activate those. If you have equipment that you're using against the project, this is where I can define the piece of equipment and see exactly what's happened. Has it been used? What was the rate it was used? So the cost piece of it shows up right here. If you have change orders are done here. And this is kind of the idea is that when I'm looking at this job, you'll see activities on the upper bar here, which would allow me to create a change order that would populate here. If I got run project billing, I actually go back to the revenue, and from this screen, I go enter my % complete, and then I run the project billing, and the system will generate the AR, the pro forma invoice right from the screen. Same idea, go to change order, create a change order, it generates the change order. When I look at the change order document, very consistent look and feel. In this case, I can see what I've got going on here. I've got my revenue change 001. I can have an external reference number. I can have an internal reference number. So we can keep track of those change orders that are in different statuses. So I don't necessarily have to manipulate and play with the numbering. We use our internal reference. We use the revenue reference as well. So I'm doing a modification here. First tab shows me the revenue, just like the project. What's going on the billing side? Am I changing existing line items? Am I adding new line items? All that happens from one screen. When I look at the cost budget, same idea. Am I changing existing budget line items? Am I adding new budget line items that are stored against this change order? And then I go to the commitments. So am I changing existing commitments or am I adding new commitments? So I do all of that on one screen. And ultimately what we'll get you to is the revenue, the commitment, and the cost associated with the change order, the margin, and then the % margin. So before I go do anything with this change order, I can see exactly where I stand. And then I'll have basic actions that we want to do. If I want to print the change order, I can do that. If I want to email the change order, I can do that. If we take and we print the change order, turn it into a PDF, then I can actually take the change order document that I printed off of this change order, and then I can push it right into DocuSign or Adobe eSign. So now I've got my document that has gone through. Because we're in the same process as the rest of the system, I can have an approval process that's out there. And then this will send my change order document out into DocuSign. It goes through the DocuSign process. And then once it's signed, notification comes back to the person responsible. And then it will bring that signed version of the change order right back into what we have within the software. So you kind of get a unique world within that perspective. And that holds true everywhere. So POs, subcontracts, change orders all have this capability to take, print, file, send, and then keep track of what's going on. This is where I get detailed description for the change order and attributes or user-defined fields, what we may need. And then this is the approval details. So not only will all of these objects that we're looking at let me go through DocuSign for signature, but it also has an internal approval process. So as we look at this, we can build out approval. So if you need 2-step, 3-step, you have a different approval process for different objects, change order being one, PO being one. We give you the ability to build in what type of approvals that need to take place. And then those approvals are tracked within each of the objects. And so you'll find that throughout the software. Are we using approvals here? Are we using approvals on subcontracts and POs? Everything is managed that way. Activity history looks at our CRM system. So if you're using our CRM and we're communicating with people, customers, vendors about projects, I can initiate the activities that we may have from a CRM perspective, and those are going to be logged right onto the project. So later when someone is talking about the project, we can see, yeah, I had a chat with this person, or I had an appointment. I'm keeping track of all of it on the project. User-defined attributes, you can add as many of these as you want. They become standard database fields that let us use them in the database for reporting. Basic GL accounts, balances. So what do we look like from an income and expense orientation? This is a list of all the commitments. So I can come now and say on this project, what are all the commitments I've issued? What's the status of the commitments? If I want to drill down and look at the commitment, I just click on the link, takes me out to the commitment. When I'm looking at the commitment now, I have access to everything. I can see this was a purchase order. I can start to get an idea of what the status is for this. It's closed. I can look at what it was. This case, I can see that I have some compliance items sitting out here. But within this, I can see everything I need to see about this PO, including any tax implications, if we've done any shipping, what was the shipping that went on there, information about the vendor, did we take a discount, did we receive any of the material, do I have any change orders that have impacted this purchase order, and then is there any compliance items that we need to know about it. All that is done within this one screen. So I'm going to go a little bit further and look at invoices. Invoice piece was on the revenue tab, entered in my percent complete, dollars that I want to bill. I run project billing. System generates a pro forma invoice. That invoice broken down by the schedule of values that we're using. We can look through this. We also, if I've turned on the approval system, we can look through the approval process that goes on through here. I can see exactly how the billings went. I can see it was a progress bill, or if we're using T&M, I can see the transactions that are generating the T&M billing portion of this. All that driven from the project. Go a little further, look at mail settings. We give you the ability to have default forms for the company, but you can also modify the forms for a project. So if you have a specific change order form or specific billing form that you required on this project, we can make those changes, put them on the project. That's what will happen with those as we go. And then finally, we have compliance capability. What compliance for us is just an ability to keep track of what's happening out there across the project, vendor, customer, and we have different ways of looking at compliance, tracking compliance. So there's just a huge number of items that we're tracking. We'll warn people during data entry that have compliance issues. We'll have compliance reports by vendor, by project to see what's outstanding. All of that's available within the core solution. So this to us is the main area in the software. Very simple, easy to get to a project, to see what's going on in a project, look what's happening within that project. Where we really get to fine tune what's going on in the system, I'm going to switch to another company real quick just to show you a few things. Kind of want to walk you through and show you the approval map process, assignment and approval maps. So these are just defined during your implementation. So do I have an AP bill approval map? So has someone entered an AP bill and do they want to route it through the organization for approval? So we can use this. In this case, we have two steps for small bills and large bills. So anything over $1,000 gets moved through a different process. You can build these to be as complex as you want. In this case, I can also do individuals and groups. So when I look at an individual, I may say, this is going to go to this person first, and then it's going to go to one of the next three people as a group. And so we don't necessarily have to have individuals that are doing all their approval. We've just got some basic things in here: project approval, expense claim approval, case approval, sales order approval. It's really kind of a unique way to get data through the software. This is we call this a global search. So if I'm sitting on the screen and I'm looking for something, and let's just say I want to look at generic inquiries, I just start typing generic and it will give me all of the menu items that are in here, as well as any transaction in the software that may include the word generic or any files out there. So I can see I've got some things in here. I've got a demo data. I got a spreadsheet that's sitting out here. So you can do very quick and easy searches through the software using the global search that gets you to anything you want. So this idea here with my generic inquiries is just, do I want to get data out of the software? So maybe I'm looking for something about AP bills or adjustments. So I can take a generic inquiry about AP bills and I can start to define what is the data that's associated with this. These generic inquiries will also show up on dashboards. So now I can see that this generic inquiry will look like this when it's run. It's basically giving me a list of all my AP bills with 4 predefined filters. So I just want to see bills or credit adjustments, and then it'll give me the ability to drill down right from the generic inquiry to the transaction. So now I can move in here and see that my generic inquiry, which was about AP, brought me down to a sub-ledgered and sub-grouped environment, and then I selected one of them. It brought me down. I'm now looking at a bill that was for a specific vendor that was coded here, and then on the screen I have the same kind of idea. I can see exactly what's going on within the software. I can look at if this is scheduled or not. I can look at the financial details. So in this case, since the AP bill has been entered, if I go look at this batch number, it drills me right from the AP bill out to show me the journal entry that came in. So again, it's getting you to very quickly, easily drilling down into the detail. Taxes, if it went through an approval process, who was involved, if there are other applications that are there, or if we have compliance that we need to know about. All of that was done because I basically came off of a query, and the query that I got to, I came off of a generic inquiry that I just was playing with out there. So really easy to get data in here. A couple of other things, we got web services for the technical folks. This is where we can define exactly what screen that I want to get data in and out of. And if we look at our web service and we need additional endpoints, you can actually build your endpoints in the software. So it's kind of a quick, easy way to get to the back end of the software because it's cloud-based, something simple, easy to use. Let's see here. I'm going to go back to my construction database real quick just to see if there's anything else we want to take a quick look at. I'm going to go look at dashboards real quick just to give you an idea. As I'm in here now, the dashboards can be defined by individual or they can be defined by type. And the idea is to get something that makes sense to somebody in the organization. So if I'm a controller and I'm interested in seeing this, we can display the data in different formats, but I can also take one of my KPIs and it will show me who my overdue customers are, and then I can drill down right from the dashboard to the customer to see what the status is. What are we looking at now? I can show that I got some basic past due information here. I can come out and look at payment methods, different offices we deal with, mail settings, compliance that we may be working on. So each one of these are going to be a little bit different. They're designed to be for a specific person. Here's an AP clerk that's just managing invoices. What do we want them to see? What do we need to do? From an approval process, we may see them going through approvals. Those objects are going to show up right on their screen. We'll see those as we go. Time and expense. And here's where we can start and do an employee time cards and approval process. This is where I can book expense receipts, and claims are all modified within the application. So we basically have a complete suite that's out here. And the interesting thing that we have also, and I'm going to just jump over to my phone real quick, is if I take my phone, just a second, and I go to my screen mirror. I'm going to mirror my screen real quick. And so this is my iPhone that I have right here. And if I come in here now and I pull up Acumatica, this is where we can also come out and start to manipulate the data. So if we've got purchase orders or dashboards or projects or any of the things that we're looking at on the screen can be mapped over into our mobile. So as I look now and I want to come and look to see what's going on with my project manager or my project chart or my controller, this is now from my phone reading up into the cloud and pulling down my dashboard. Let's see, it's changed the orientation just based on what goes on within here. But you'll have the same capabilities now. So if I'm moving through the different dashboards, I can see what's going on. I can get to the data that's important to me. I can move back out, and if I want to go to reports, and I'm sitting out here and I want to get to my WIP report, I've got an ability to just run that WIP report right from the screen. It'll tell me what I'm looking at. This will now go run the report, pull it to the screen, and see what I've got out there. And I'm using demo data, so I don't know if I have much in the way of a WIP report at this point, but any of the reports technically can be exposed out here on my on this. So there's the report, and I'll turn my this sideways. So now I've got my basic WIP report that's showing me contract amount, revised, estimated cost, gross profit, cost percent complete, over-unders, my forecasted, and I got that right from my phone, and my phone was basically running the Acumatica app. It could be on an iPhone or it could be over on an Android, but you're just taking now and moving through here. This approvals work the same way. If you have the approval engine on, you need to do approvals. They can be done from your phone, they can be done from a tablet, or they can be done in any way. In this case, I'm now looking at a purchase order that's out there. I'm drilling down to look. I can start to see if I've got shipping instructions. I can look at discounts, approvals, whatever we need to see can be done from this phone. And this phone actually mirrors what's going on in my system. So I am going to pause here for a second. We're at about 11:45 Pacific time, so I want to leave some time for questions. And Troy, if you want to jump back on, and give me some idea on questions. Let's start working on those.
Well, we have you've done a great job today. There's only a couple of questions so far. And then one of them you already answered, but I'll go ahead and ask it again. One of them was, does the system actually create the documents like change orders, subcontract agreements? So what all documents can they create from the system? And then the follow-up to that would be, besides, can you email them can you email the documents from the system? Or then what are the other options? I believe you mentioned DocuSign as well.
Right. So when I go to a document like a subcontract, we give you the ability to associate a form from a subcontract. And so I can print that form to a PDF. I go through the report side and say, hey, I want to print the subcontract document form, turn it into a PDF, attach it to the subcontract record, send it out through DocuSign or Adobe eSign. If I just want to send it, we have the same capability. We know who the vendor is now. We know who their default email is. If we use the email subcontract, software will generate the subcontract into a PDF, and then we email it through the software. When we do that, we're actually keeping track now of that record. We generate the email. If we're using our CRM system, that email now is going to be logged and stored. If you decide not to use the CRM, then it will still generate it, and I can send it from right within the software. And that happens on anywhere. So PO, subcontracts, change orders, any document that we need. There's a record sitting here, receipts, time. We have the ability to go ahead and print, attach, send, or in most cases, if it's a typical record, we'll go ahead and give you the action, which would be email. This is kind of unique here. Most of our customers are used to action. So if I'm sitting on a subcontract, if I'm in an approval process, I can say, I can approve it or reject it. This would be an AP bill or AR and pro forma, or in this case, a subcontract. I may get notification I need to approve a subcontract. This will move it through the subcontract to the approval process where I approve it. Maybe it goes back to accounting or operations, and then they are going to go ahead, once it's been approved, and go generate the subcontract and email it or move it through DocuSign. But it also gets into kind of typical workflow that we may see within the accounting group. So if I've got a subcontract in front of me, I may want to enter an AP bill from it. I got it sitting here, I'm reviewing it, let's go enter the AP bill. So I can enter an AP bill through the payables process, but I can also enter it right from the document itself. We can complete subcontracts if they're done, we can cancel them if we want to get rid of them. If you've got a subcontract you need to make a prepayment against, you can do that as well from right here. So you'll find actions are trying to mimic typical workflows within a construction company. Okay, Troy.
Okay, and then so what would a payroll clerk or AP clerk see? What are their entry screens like?
So if we were going to go to say let's just do an AP person. They might have a dashboard that's designed here that it's showing whatever we want them to see. Bills that we need to approve, bills that we need to pay, the process that we need to pay here. So if they were to click into the approval process, this will take them down to what are the items that need to go to approval, and then they can approve from here. If we want to see what a screen looks like, this screen is a screen we would use to go and enter an AP bill. Right? It's the same orientation of this, but to generate a new bill, you just go from this screen, hit the plus button. It tells me that I'm adding a new record, the AP bill, and this is what shows up. So I'm adding the bill. Interesting thing here is if we have features that we're not using, I turn them off, they move away from the screen. As I move through this screen, you'll see that there are items that are required, and then we'll have all of these. When we get into any of the screens down here, the end user can define what order they want these items to show up. So if you want to have your columns in a certain order, you can drag them and drop them, leave them. Or if I want to save them and use them from a consistent basis, this is where I can come out and say, just move these 3 items up here and then save them, and then all of your items are in the order that you want. You also have the ability to take items away. So if you don't need some of these columns, they're just busy, then you can just drag them over here and say, I don't want that one, or I don't want this one. I just move them over to this list that are not used. And then your screen's made up of only the columns you want in only the order you want, and that is stored by individual. So now every individual can have their own environment.
Great.
Hey,
yep. And so one more question Josh had was a question on where are your costs of your SKUs and our items coming from? And the follow-up to that was, is there an estimator?
So we got a couple things. We have cost codes. These are user defined. I'm just assuming that's part of it. This is where I can define where I want my costs to be coded. We use this when I'm entering a budget or entering an AP bill, or you'll see the cost code capability. If you're more on the inventory side, we get into non-stock items in some cases. A non-stock item can be if I want to build a group of items that I'm using either from a costing basis or maybe when I want to get into more detail from a service basis, we can build these item tables that we use in purchasing, in billing, in costing. It's just kind of a unique way for us to have a single database of items that we're utilizing in different areas of the software. And so this is something we do when we do the initial setup, but it's something that you can also expand as you start to use the system more, and in different modules. You may have stock items or non-stock items, you may have labor items or service items, and they're all stored and manipulated together. Okay, Troy.
Okay, I think, let's see. How are job cost items like labor and material coded to the general ledger accounts? And the follow-up on that would be, are there controls for that?
So there are. So when we start looking, we set up this case. This is going to be labor. This is where I define the labor aspect of this. And so within here now, we can start to build in unit of measures, posting classes. So there's a fair amount in here to define exactly what happens on each of these items, including price and cost, GL accounts. So where do we want this labor to show up? And then there are controls that we have so that when someone's posting to a project, we need to have a specific type that we use there. So that happens all during setup. We actually use things called templates, so we can predefine what's going on within the software. And as transactions come in, this is how we control data that flows in cost-wise to the general ledger.
Great. All right. I think that about does it for the questions. While people are deciding if they have any last questions, Glenn, I'm just going to take control for 1 second here if I can figure out the swap here. And can everyone see
Yeah, we can see it.
My screen now? Good. Okay. So this is, guys, if you have any more questions, go ahead and fire them in, but I just wanted to, as we're ending the meeting, just wanted to give everyone an opportunity to kind of see what's next, what are the next steps may be. If some of this has hit home with you guys, but you're not really sure, you need a more workflow-based demo, you need to get more in the details in a few areas, or maybe we just didn't answer some of those outstanding questions that may come to you at some point if they're not already. Schedule a needs analysis call with either myself or Mike Vassar, and we'll spend a half hour with you on the phone or go to meeting, and we'll go through some of the processes that you guys are doing now. It's also helpful for us to get some sample reports and cost code, sample cost codes, invoices, etc. Anything you think that may be unique or helpful for us that we could, build an agenda and then schedule a one-on-one demo with you guys. That's ultimately what we love to do. And once we get to that point, we could pretty much give you a good initial quote on what the software would cost, and we'll have that ready to you before we actually do the demo. And then sort of post presentation, we can schedule an implementation review with you, talk about, okay, we like the software, we want to actually buy it. What does it take to get involved with this? I mean, how's the implementation going to work? What are the steps? We'll go through all of those steps and answer any of the questions you may have on that. And then tidy up any last sort of final proposal items that we need to knock out based on what we've uncovered through this entire process, and get you guys started. We want to make it easy. I don't know if Glenn sort of touched on it. This is a company, if you like input and software, you can have an opportunity to provide input to how you'd like to see the software perform. We have a great way to log those requests and actually monitor them and get, we like the feedback. So if there's no other questions, we'll go ahead and end the call for today. I want to thank you all on behalf of Mike Vassar, myself, and Glenn for taking an hour out of your day and checking out the Acumatica software. And we love to catch up with each one of you guys individually next week as you have some availability. All right, Glenn, I think that's it. Thank you, everyone. We're going to go ahead and end the call now. Have a good day.